Not bad. Oh. What's going on? I did not start properly. Is my mic on? It is on. What's going on, guys? Josh from SoccerReviewsForYou.com, bringing you my review plus on-feet video of the brand new Nike Phantom VSN Pro in this fully blacked out colorway that is called the Stealth Ops Pack. I've also heard people call it the Black Ops Pack, but I'm pretty sure Stealth Ops is the official name. Now, this is the first takedown model in the brand new Phantom VSN lineup. So at the very top, you have this guy right here, the Phantom VSN Elite, with a $275 retail price. And then for a full $125 less, you have this guy right here, the Phantom VSN Pro, which, as you can see side by side, they do have their similarities as far as design quirks are concerned, but I can assure you that they are drastically different from each other. I'm going to be going over all of those differences in today's video and essentially come to the conclusion as to whether or not this is worth it, because while $150 is a lot less than $275, and I think these are definitely worth the $275 price tag, $150 is still a lot of money for a pair of boots. So we're going to go over all the details that you need to know in today's video, including how they fit and feel on feet. So if you're interested in learning more, determining whether or not these are worth it, please stick around, watch the entire video. And if you are interested in a pair of these for yourself, I'll leave a little pop-up on screen, or you can click the first link down below. That'll take you to the review page on my website, where you'll find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes, where you'll be able to pick these up below their normal $150 retail price. If you guys do end up enjoying the video, don't forget to support it with a like. And if you're new here watching for the first time, don't forget to hit that subscribe button along with the little bell notification for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. Included with the boots is this box, which, unlike the top-end Elite variants, which now come with a silver box, this just has a regular orange one. They also come with the brand new Ghost bag, which, just like the Ghost laces, you can't see it. There's no bag. I would say that there are two main features of the top-end Phantom VSN Elite that really define the fit, feel, and overall performance of this particular boot, and that is the internal Quadfit system, which has everything to do with fit, lockdown, and responsiveness, and then the external Flyknit upper, which of course has everything to do with touch and feel. The Pro has none of those things, meaning that it's almost a completely different boot in every single way. Now, before we get into specific details on the Pro variation of the Phantom VSN, if you have not seen my review of the Phantom VSN Elite, I'm gonna leave a little pop-up on screen. Go and watch it, because in order to properly understand the Pro, you need to understand all the tech behind the Elite that I realize the Pro doesn't necessarily have, but if you don't understand this boot, it's gonna be difficult to understand what's going on here. The Quadfit system of the Phantom VSN Elite is really the one characteristic that, in my opinion, defines that boot, and it is not included on any of the takedowns, the Pro or the Academy, but it still has an internal structure. What's basically happening here is internally, you're going to find that it's basically a mesh lining material, and it's very, very difficult for me to show you. Here's a picture of the top-end Elite internals with the actual Quadfit material. This does not have that same material, but it has the same basic construction, where basically you have an internal lining which acts as your structure, and then you have an upper on top, which is the part that's there mainly for the sake of touch. However, this is not quite the same as that Quadfit system that runs throughout the entire inside of the shoe as an independent piece. You're gonna find that the liner attaches to the upper itself right about at this point here inside of the shoe, and then this part is fully independent of that internal lining material that I guess you could call kind of a Quadfit system, but it doesn't feature any of the same materials. Basically, the entire inside of the shoe is lined in this padded mesh, just like you see here on the lace cover portion of the upper on the outside. Now, this does also feature ghost laces. I know the number one question a lot of people are going to ask is, are these laceless? The answer to that question is no, because you can see the laces are right here. Because this is black on black, very difficult for me to show you guys, but similar to the Elite, it has these little nylon straps running down the middle of the shoe underneath this lace cover that basically connect the laces to this internal lining structure system to hold everything in place. The laces are there for a reason, basically. When you tie the laces tight, it secures your foot in place, especially the midfoot, especially heel lock. So if you were to try to use these as laceless boots, which by the way, they were not intended to be used that way, you're essentially not going to have any lockdown. Your heel's going to slip all over the place, and the shoe for the most part is not going to have any stability, and I wouldn't necessarily say would be particularly safe either. So if you're buying these boots, wear them with the laces, tie the laces, because they put the laces there for a reason. Use the laces. Which brings us to the part that we can see, the upper on the outside of the boots, which as you'll notice is not made out of Flyknit like the Elites. Instead, it's made out of NikeSkin. You can see the branding right there. And NikeSkin is a material that we have seen quite a bit over the last couple of years on the first takedown model, even second tier takedowns, although the first tier takedowns tend to have much better quality NikeSkin. But this material was originally introduced as a top end synthetic, and I must say that this feels very premium. Basically, NikeSkin is a mesh-based synthetic, and you can see very clearly with the semi-translucent covering that you have here in black that it's basically just a grid pattern mesh with a fused layer on top, also called NikeSkin. I realize that's a little bit confusing, but Nike does a lot of confusing things. They have two Phantoms now, even though they're two separate lines, so nothing necessarily has to make sense in order for them to, I guess, function as a company. Either way, this NikeSkin material is very soft, it's very thin. I would say it's very similar in thickness to that of the Elite, despite being a completely different material, and honestly feels pretty similar in regards to softness and overall touch on the ball. One huge difference though is the fact that you don't have a micro texturing throughout the entire upper. There's a slight bit of texturing from the mesh pattern itself, but for the most part the upper is left completely slick, except for the one triangle zone that is a signature element of this new Phantom Vision model, where you are going to find that three-sided shape with the micro texturing in between that really does provide a lot of extra grip on the ball. So unlike the Elite that kind of feels grippy across the entire upper, you end up with a more slick finish here through the forefoot on the lateral side, and then a very grippy finish, not necessarily to the extent that rubber would be grippy, but more of a gritty sensation. This is like a rough sandpaper type texturing. That's how I would describe it. This area of the foot is definitely going to offer a lot more grip on the ball than everywhere else. And then of course with the lace cover, because it needs to have some stretch across the top of the foot, it's just an open mesh with some stretch to it. Not quite as much grip in this area of the foot just because it is exposed mesh, but for the most part the touch on the ball I would say is quite good. If you're wondering about thickness, this is not quite as thin as what you'll get from Mercurials, but it definitely is thinner than what you'll get from the Hypervenom line. Something else worth noting, and the reason why I showed you the upper bulging out on the Phantom Vision Pros in the intro of this video, is that because of the difference in material where you have an elasticated Flyknit to a kind of slightly stretchy mesh material, that mesh is not going to be as stretchy as the Flyknit, which means they actually have to make for extra space, allowing you to get your foot in and out in order to maintain this lace cover design. So you can see when the two shoes are side by side, the top piece of this upper actually comes up a lot higher on the foot than the Flyknit. That's simply because the Flyknit will stretch and just fit more close to your foot. It's a lace cover, but it fits very tight over top of the laces, where this, depending on the volume of your foot, I don't have a particularly high volume midfoot, there's gonna be that little bit of extra space. Is it really that big of a deal? In my opinion, not really, but for a lot of people who don't like the look of folds in the upper, this is gonna have some significant folds, at least more so than what you'll find with the Elite. Which brings us to the rear of the shoe that does have some similarities to that of the Elite, mainly the fact that it does have an internal plastic heel counter, and you'll also notice that the shoe looks like it was designed as a low cut first, but of course this does feature a DF collar. The collar itself, I believe being made out of Flyknit, it feels identical to what you'll find on the Elite variation, and unlike the other collars that we've seen from the Nike brand up until the Phantom Vision, this is very soft, very flexible, pretty much has no rigidity to it whatsoever. I would say this is mostly a cosmetic element, there for the sake of looks, rather than having any kind of performance benefit whatsoever. You simply do not feel this when you're wearing the boots. Now, of course, it is labeled as the Phantom Vision Pro DF. Does that mean we're going to be getting a low cut variation of the shoe, just like the Elites? I'm not really sure. At this point in time, it doesn't look like that's going to be the case, but who knows what they're going to do in the future. Realistically, if they wanted to make this a low-cut shoe because of the construction, it would end up looking like that and it would work perfectly fine. Whether or not they'll do that, though, is a completely different story. Internally, it does feature a completely different liner on the inside that hopefully you can see in this video is a black mesh material with a decent amount of padding. I'm typically not a huge fan of mesh liners, mainly because I feel like it's kind of a cheaper way of doing things, but I will admit that it grips your heel nicely, it fits really well, and it's quite comfortable. So from that perspective, I have no issues with what they've done here. The insoles are of course fully removable, and as you can see, it has a really thin midfoot taper to it. I'm not exactly sure why they shaped the insole like this. I can assure you that the midfoot on the boots themselves isn't actually that slim, but the insole is shaped this way for whatever reason. The overall shape, I would say, feels the same as the Elites. So again, no real explanation for this, but the insole pretty straightforward. It's got a standard mesh liner on top, the Phantom Vision branding, of course, and it's just a single layer of this gray foam. Nothing too fancy, but kind of what you would expect for a takedown model. Moving on to the sole plate and stud pattern, aside from the coloring, of course, it ends up looking quite similar to that of the top end Elite variation, but it is actually a different type of material that you can't so much tell from the outside, but when you take the insole out and look inside, you definitely can tell it's a completely different construction, which does add some weight to the shoe, something we'll talk about a little bit later in the video. As far as how the sole plate feels though, I would actually say that it's slightly more flexible than what you'll get on the Elite, but for the most part still feels like a nice solid base under your feet. So no issues with the sole plate whatsoever. Kind of indifferent as to whether or not it's better or worse than that of the Elite. The only thing that's better with the Elite is that it would be technically a little bit lighter. And then of course you have the stud pattern, this being the FG stud pattern that would be the same across the entire line, at least for the Pro and Elites. Technically the Academies come with a multi-ground stud pattern that won't be available on the top end variations. Either way, complete redesign in comparison to the Magista that of course this line replaces, and just much more aggressive. This is, out of all the stud patterns on offer, not just from Nike but from any other brand, this is what I would say is kind of second best as far as overall aggression is concerned when compared to what I think is the most aggressive stud pattern on the market, the Mercurial line. So plenty of bite. You can see it's got this very aggressive bladed stud under the forefoot big toe area. So that's when you're pushing off. That's going to provide tons and tons of grip. And then all the other studs, as you can see, are kind of like these hybrid bladed conical studs that penetrate the ground really nicely and provide tons and tons of bite. And then you have full bladed studs there under the heel. Overall, very aggressive stud pattern. I would only recommend using this on firm natural grass. If you use this on artificial grass, not only will the durability of the boots definitely take a hit, but this will be quite clingy, which isn't necessarily the safest thing in the world. So if you're buying these, go for the firm ground version only if you're going to use them on natural grass. If you're playing on artificial grass, buy the AG Pro stud pattern variation that I'm sure will be available sooner rather than later. And then of course there's the weight, and in a size 9.5 US, the Phantom Vision Pro weighs in at 8.6, 8.7 ounces, which when compared to the Phantom Vision Elite's 7.7 ounces, this is a full ounce heavier. Is that extra weight super noticeable? In my opinion, no. What's going to be drastically more noticeable when comparing the Pro and the Elite is just the way that they fit and feel in general, because despite looking quite similar and seemingly having very similar designs, they don't really feel that similar because the technologies and internals and materials are entirely different. If I had to guess, I would actually guess that the mesh-based upper on this particular shoe is lighter than the Flyknit-based upper on the Elite, but because of the sole plate, like I said earlier, being a different type of material, that's where I think the extra weight is coming from. So for a takedown model, certainly not heavy. For a modern boot in general, 8.6, 8.7 ounces, I don't think is heavy, but if you're looking for that super lightweight feel, these aren't necessarily going to provide it, but like I said, they don't feel heavy. Now, since these have a lace cover and you don't necessarily have easy access to the lacing system, putting them on can be a little bit more tricky than other mid-cut models from Nike or any other brand for that matter. What I like to do is kind of open it up a little bit and loosen the top lacing position, because that's kind of all you have access to. And then from there, it's kind of just a matter of putting them on like you would any other mid-cut shoe. I like to use both hands, basically both thumbs, pull the opening as big as possible, kind of slide my foot in sideways, turn it over, and then using this back thumb to support the heel counter so I'm not crushing that when I push my foot in. And then I'm just kind of pushing my foot down and pulling the upper up at the same time. Fix the collar around the edges, and then the way they designed this ghost lacing system, basically you leave the two ends out, you pull it, it tightens it all the way through. It's not a particularly big lacing system, and that seems to do a pretty good job of locking your foot in place. From there, tie them up. Whether or not you want to tuck it under the lace cover or leave them over top, that's entirely up to you, but that's basically the process. On feet, the Phantom Vision Pro feels really, really comfortable because it's pretty much a mesh-based upper. Everything is soft, everything is flexible. This is very very common for modern day soccer cleats. So there's nothing that unusual about the way that these fit and feel on feet, especially when compared to the Elite variation that really does have, I would say, a more unique sensation on feet in general, but a nice snug fit. Very, very soft, very flexible. Like I mentioned, that mesh heel liner, I kind of think that's a little bit on the cheaper side, but it feels extremely comfortable on feet. And really, this is one of those shoes that doesn't seem to have any kind of break-in time. They feel pretty much good to go the second that you put them on. Although just like any new boots, there is a period of just getting used to the way that they feel in general. That's not to say that these couldn't give you blisters depending on your specific situation. Of course, I showed you in the intro and talked about it earlier, the way that the upper folds. The only reason why it does that is simply because of the material it's made out of. Every upper is going to fold. This one folds a little bit more than normal just because of the way that the lace cover is cut and the fact that it's made out of this mesh. Whether or not that's really a super concerning thing, I guess that depends on your own opinion. For me though, it's nothing that I ever notice when playing in the boots, so I wouldn't be too concerned about it at all. As far as width is concerned, of course this does replace the Magista line, and the overall shape I wouldn't say is that drastically different. I feel like they lowered the volume ever so slightly, but the overall shape isn't too far off. It's got a nice snug fit to it, but definitely isn't overly wide or overly narrow. I would say width-wise, these are going to be suitable for most people, as long as you don't have super wide feet, because I don't think these are going to stretch all that much. And as far as the sizing is concerned, I'm wearing these in my usual size 9.5 US. The fit and the length is pretty much perfect. My feet are about a 9.25. And unlike the previous generation Magistas that ran basically a half size small, these feel more true to size to me. So if you are looking to order a pair of these for yourself, I would recommend going true to size in order to achieve the best possible fit. So in conclusion, is the Phantom VSN Pro worth the full $150 retail price? And I kind of am split between yes and no when answering this question. I think from the perspective of having good quality materials, which NikeSkin I think is a good quality material. I like having the extra grip through the midfoot of the upper. The shoe fits well, it's comfortable. I really like the stud pattern. It has a lot going for it as far as quality is concerned. So from that perspective, yes, this is definitely worth the $150. And if we're comparing this to the Magista Orden 2, now technically called the Magista Obra 2 Pro, this is a much better shoe for the same amount of money. I would much rather wear this versus the old Orden 2. The reason why I don't think this is necessarily worth the $150 is it kind of depends on what you're looking for when it comes to fit and feel. I think if you were expecting a more padded touch on the ball, you'd be better off buying the $130 Nike Tiempo Legacy 3, now technically the Tiempo Legend 7 Pro, or even the Nike Premier 2. Something with a leather upper, I would argue, is going to provide a more premium padded feel on the ball and is also going to be less expensive than this. However, if you like the design, if you like the look, if you like the idea and concept behind the Phantom VSN model as a whole, I definitely think there's value to this at the $150 price point. It's one of those boots that's kind of difficult to compare to other options on the market right now. So as a whole, based on the fact that I think it's good quality, fits really nice, and has a good stud pattern, I can recommend these for the $150 price tag. Anyways, guys, that is it for my review. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to support it with a like. Again, if you're interested in a pair for yourself, you can click the first link down below. That'll take you to the review page on my website, where you'll find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes, where you'll be able to pick these up below their normal $150 retail price. If you have any questions, which I'm sure there will be plenty of questions, leave them down below in the comments, and I'll do my best to get an answer out to you as soon as I possibly can. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. All my social media information is linked down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, thanks for watching.